Today we're going to work with Photoshop Assignment 7. Okay, so go into the handout folder, go to J. Serretta, Grade 10 Photography, Section C Photoshop, and Assignment 7. Grab the photo, or you can use one you've taken yourself, and open it in Photoshop. Okay, so here is the photo that I'm going to be working with today, and what we're going to do to this photo is add some facial hair. So there's two methods we're going to do here. We're going to use one to make the beard and one to make the mustache. So the first thing we need to learn how to do is how to make a custom brush. So we can see that when we select a paintbrush, there is a bunch of pre-built brushes in here, and we're going to learn how to make our own. So the first thing we need to do is create a brand new file. So File, New. I don't need to give this a name because I'm not actually going to save it. I'm just going to use this. Make this pixels. 500 by 500 is probably good enough. Click OK. And using a standard brush with hard pixeled edges, not fuzzy edges like this one, we are going to draw some squiggly lines that are going to represent a sample of hair. So I'm just going to leave it as black, and I'll just draw some squiggles here. Okay, nice and random. So something like that. Now once we have that done, we need to actually turn this into a custom brush. And the way we do that is by going to Edit, and we're going to go to Define Brush Preset. We can now give this a name. So I will call this Serretta's New Awesome Wicked Paintbrush, or whatever you would like to call yours, as long as it's appropriate, of course. You can now see that that has actually turned into a brush. It's fantastic. Okay, so I don't need to keep this file, as I've already stated. I can get rid of it. I don't need to save the changes. Go back here, and I can see that this brush is already selected. Or if I go up here, it has been added to my brush panel. Okay. Now before we go into actually using this and painting on his face, we need to adjust a few of these settings. So we want to bring up the brushes palette, and the way to do that is go to Window and just make sure brush is checked off, and here it has popped up. Okay, one of the things we need to adjust here is the shape dynamics. Okay, so click on Shape Dynamics, and what we're going to do in the shape dynamics is turn the size jitter off. So turn that down. Turn that off. So turn the control off. And our angle jitter, we're going to set to 60%. Okay, but you can always go higher to create a more random appearance. Now we're going to go into color dynamics, and we are going to, again, just boost these up a bit. So I'm going to turn this up to about 17, maybe. I'll make the saturation 27. Turn the brightness up to about 9. and I will leave the purity alone. Okay, so now to make this brush with the specific settings a permanent member of your brush collection, we can again, up here at this little flyaway menu, just set it to new brush preset. Okay, so Soreta's new awesome wicked PA. I'm not sure what that's about, but brush 2. Okay, and then click OK. We're now ready to start painting on this guy's face. But what we want to make sure we do is we don't want to actually modify this layer again. So you should be in the habit of creating, first of all, a copy. And then because I don't actually want to draw on his face in case I make a mistake, I'm going to add a blank layer. Okay, so we're going to add the beard on a blank layer. Now you'll notice that if I was to do this, it's painting really, really dark black, which is not quite what I want. So what I'm going to ask you to do now is click on the color palette, and you get this little eyedropper. So I can sample colors. And I'd like you to sample 2 colors from this guy's hair. Okay, so I'll take one sample there, and you can see it's been loaded. Click OK. And for the background color, do the same thing. Take another sample of his hair, click OK. Alright, we are now ready to start painting. What I'm going to do is using my, you can either adjust the diameter of your brush up here, or you can use the square brackets on your keyboard to adjust the color of, or the size of your brush, okay? So the square brackets beside the letter P. One makes the brush smaller, one makes the brush larger. Okay, so once you are finished doing that, we are now going to very gently paint this guy's beard. And if you take your time, you should get a pretty decent effect. If you find that it's too rainbow an effect here for you, what you can do is open up your brushes panel by going to Window Brushes again and decreasing the size of your color jitter. Okay? So there we have added a beard, and I'm just going to click and add some light brush strokes around the edges to make it look like it's more random. And something like that. Okay? It's good enough for now. If you take your time, you can probably make it look a little bit more realistic. So now we've done the beard, and it is on a separate layer. What we're going to do for the mustache is use a different method. Okay? So what we're going to do is go to our original background layer. I can turn this off if I want. Click on the background copy that we've made. And we're now going to use something called a quick mask. So notice that this is highlighted in blue, and when I press the letter Q, it becomes gray. Okay? So that's what we want to do, is we want to select that layer and press Q so that it goes gray. Now we are going to go to Filter, Render, Fibers. And here what we want to do is set this variance to about 22, and let's crank the strength all the way up. Now when we click OK, we get these red lines on our photo. Okay? And if we press Q, we get this blinking lines, which is actually a selection. So very similar to our selection tool. Okay? Now before I do anything with this, I want to make sure that I create a new blank layer. And this is where my mustache is going to be. Okay, so we've got a brand new layer. And we are then going to go to Edit, Fill, and we are going to select black. Click OK. Now I can go to Select, Deselect, or simply press Command D. And I can see that I have a bunch of filled fibers. Okay? Now I'm going to take my rectangular marquee tool and I'm going to mark off an area for this guy's mustache. Maybe about that size. You want to make sure too here that your feather is set to 0 just in case, okay? If it's not, it'll have kind of a rounded effect and we don't really want that. So now I have this rectangular selection on my new mustache layer. And what I want to do is select the inverse actually. So I don't want to delete this, I want to delete all of this area here. And I'm going to do that by going to Select, Inverse, and press Delete. Okay? Now I can deselect that. And now the final step is to transform this mustache. And the way we're going to do that is by going to Edit, Transform, and we're going to do something called a warp. And what you can do here is you can actually grab these points and pull them in. Okay, so I'll pull this into about there. There's these little handles here that I can use to bend the mustache so that it goes around his nose. Okay, this point maybe I'll move in here. Move it up above his lip. And again, by just using these little handlebars here, we can change this selection around a bit. Okay? Might have gotten a little bit overboard with the mustache here, so let's bring some of this in. And adjust the mustache to your desired preference here. Okay, and then press enter when you are done with your mustache. Now, it looks a little bit fake. So what we're going to do is actually use our created brush that we created before. And we're going to use this as an eraser. So I select my eraser and hit my drop down menu here, and I can select that brush that I had made before. Okay? Decrease the size of that brush. And if I zoom in here, this will help a little bit as well. Now using this eraser, simply feather the edges a bit. Okay, so you can see that if you just go carefully along this, it will give it a little bit more of a at least realistic textured look. So it's not so clean cut and fake looking. And go all the way around. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is actually just copy this layer to thicken the mustache up a bit. Okay, and when you're done, you of course are going to save this as file, save as, using our naming convention, your last name, followed by an underscore, followed by assignment 7, save it to your desktop, click OK, and then place that in the hand-in folder.